The studio lights were shining bright, the audience was buzzing with laughter, and the famous TV host was in his element. Known for his sharp humor and playful mockery, he often turned everyday people into the subject of his jokes. On this particular evening, his eyes landed on a simple woman sitting quietly in the crowd. She wasn't dressed like a celebrity, nor did she seem like someone used to the spotlight. But that's exactly why he chose her. With a grin, he called her up on stage, pretending to be friendly, but everyone could sense that his real intention was to make fun of her. The host handed her the microphone and asked her to sing, his tone laced with sarcasm. The audience chuckled, expecting an awkward performance they could laugh at. The woman hesitated for a moment, looking unsure, almost embarrassed by the sudden attention. It was clear she wasn't prepared for this, and the host leaned back, ready to enjoy the spectacle he thought would unfold. The cameras zoomed in, capturing every nervous detail, the way she held the mic tightly, the way her eyes darted around as if searching for courage. What no one expected, not even the host himself, was what happened next. The woman closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and when she finally began to sing, her voice didn't just fill the room, it stopped it. The laughter faded, the chatter disappeared, and even the host's smirk froze on his face. Her voice carried a depth and beauty that no one had imagined, a voice so powerful it silenced an entire studio. But this was only the beginning. What she revealed in that moment didn't just change the atmosphere, it changed the way everyone looked at her, and even the host himself was left struggling for words. The audience sat frozen, still trying to process what they had just heard. Moments ago, she was just a quiet face in the crowd, someone no one expected to remember after the show. Yet now, with only a few notes, she had shifted the entire mood of the room. The host, who usually thrived on witty comebacks, leaned forward in his chair, his eyes narrowing with curiosity. For the first time in a long while, he didn't know what to say. But who was this woman? She hadn't come dressed for fame or recognition. Her clothes were simple, her demeanor humble, and she carried herself as though she wanted to blend into the background. She hadn't even volunteered to be on stage. She was chosen, almost pushed into this moment. And now, with her voice echoing in the minds of everyone present, the mystery of her story became impossible to ignore. Behind her calm expression was a life no one in the audience knew about. She wasn't a trained singer, at least not in the professional sense. She had grown up far from glittering stages, in a small community where music was more about heart than performance. Singing for her wasn't about applause, it was about connection, about carrying emotions that words alone could never hold. The cameras continued to roll, capturing every second of the stunned silence. The audience members exchanged glances, whispering to one another, while the host tried to mask his surprise with a forced smile. But deep down, he knew this was not what he had planned. Instead of being the center of the joke, she had become the center of attention, and not in the way he expected. Still, questions lingered in the air. How could someone so ordinary possess such extraordinary talent? And what would happen when her voice revealed more than anyone was prepared to hear? The host shifted in his seat, trying to regain control of the show, but the moment was no longer his. Every eye in the studio was fixed on the woman, and the cameras lingered on her face, searching for answers. She stood quietly, microphone still in her hand, as though she hadn't realized the storm she had just created. The host cleared his throat and forced a laugh, attempting to brush it off as a lucky note. But even he knew no one was buying it. The audience wasn't laughing anymore. They wanted to hear more. For the first time, the woman looked directly at the host. There was no arrogance in her gaze, no sign of anger, just a calm confidence that unsettled him. This was supposed to be his stage, his spotlight, but she had taken it without even trying. And the conflict grew sharper with each passing second. Should he let her continue, knowing it might outshine him, or should he cut her short and risk the crowd turning against him? Meanwhile, whispers began spreading behind the cameras. The producers exchanged looks, sensing a rare opportunity. A moment like this could turn into television gold if handled right. But there was risk too. Would the host, famous for his pride, allow someone else to take the spotlight so easily? Among the audience, people started recalling stories of similar moments when hidden talent had been discovered in the most unexpected places. Some even began wondering if the woman had a past in music, a history that she was hiding. Yet no one really knew. All they had was her voice, and it was enough to spark both curiosity and tension. The stage that was meant to humiliate her had now become a stage of unanswered questions. And with every heartbeat, the pressure grew heavier, as if something bigger was about to unfold. The host finally stood up from his chair, clapping a little too loudly, as if trying to prove that he was still in charge. The audience joined in, but their eyes weren't on him. They were glued to the woman. She looked almost overwhelmed by the sudden attention, yet there was a quiet strength about her, the kind of strength that didn't need to be spoken. The host forced a smile and asked if she could sing another song, this time framing it as a challenge. His tone was playful on the surface, but underneath it was a desperate attempt to take back control of the moment. The producers gave a subtle nod, signaling to the band, and the music began. The tension in the air was electric. Everyone was waiting to see if her first performance had been a fluke or if she truly had something remarkable. The woman closed her eyes again, holding the microphone close, and for a heartbeat, the entire studio held its breath. The host leaned on his desk, half grinning, half worried, his mind racing. If she sang even better than before, he risked being overshadowed on his own show. If she stumbled, he could regain his dominance. It was a battle of pride versus talent, and the outcome was uncertain. The audience leaned forward in their seats, phones ready to record what might become the most unforgettable moment on live television. Whispers spread like wildfire, each person predicting what would happen next. Even the band members, seasoned professionals, looked curious, waiting to see how her voice would blend with their music. The woman took a deep breath, the first note rising softly, and in that fragile instant, the entire room felt the weight of what was about to come. Something big was building, and no one could turn away. Her voice rose above the music, clear and powerful, carrying emotions that made the room fall silent once more. Every note she sang seemed to peel back a layer of who she really was, as though her soul itself was speaking through the melody. The audience was entranced, yet just as the tension reached its peak, an unexpected twist shifted everything. Halfway through the song, one of the producers suddenly walked onto the stage. The host's smile froze as he realized this wasn't planned. The producer leaned in, whispering something into the host's ear, and the host's face changed instantly, from forced confidence to genuine shock. The woman kept singing, unaware of the whispers, but the energy in the studio shifted again. The audience, sensing something unusual, began murmuring, their curiosity turning into restless anticipation. The host tried to compose himself, but his voice shook slightly as he interrupted the performance. He announced that there was something unusual about this contestant, a statement that sent ripples of confusion through the crowd. Who was she, really? Why was the producer so eager to step in during such a powerful moment? The woman lowered the microphone, her expression unreadable. For the first time, a flicker of tension crossed her face, as though a secret she had worked hard to keep hidden was suddenly at risk of being exposed. The audience leaned forward, desperate for answers. The host, caught between protecting his pride and following the producer's lead, decided to push the moment further. With the cameras still rolling, he hinted that her story wasn't as simple as it seemed, that behind her humble appearance was a truth that could change everything they thought they knew about her. The air grew heavier, the suspense sharper, as the mystery around the woman deepened, leaving everyone breathless for what would be revealed next. The studio was buzzing with whispers, the tension so thick that even the camera seemed to capture the weight of the moment. The host, still trying to steady his voice, asked the woman directly if there was something she wished to share with the audience. For a moment, she stood in silence, her eyes downcast, gripping the microphone tightly. Then, with a quiet but steady tone, she spoke. She revealed that years ago, she had once dreamed of singing professionally, but had given it up after life pulled her in a different direction. Family responsibilities, hardships, and the need to survive had silenced her voice long before any stage could have. The audience gasped, not because of the confession itself, but because it explained the depth behind every note she sang. Her voice carried her life's struggles, her sacrifices, and her unspoken dreams. Suddenly, what seemed like a random moment on a TV show turned into something far more powerful. The host, caught off guard, tried to respond with charm, but his voice faltered. He had intended to mock her, but instead he had given her the chance to reclaim something she thought she had lost forever. As the audience rose to their feet, applauding louder than ever, the woman's eyes welled with tears. She hadn't come for fame, yet she had found a stage that finally recognized her gift. The host, humbled, admitted he had underestimated her, a rare moment of vulnerability in front of millions. But just as the applause reached its peak, the final twist arrived. The producer stepped back on stage, smiling as he revealed that a well-known music label executive had been watching the live broadcast. A call had just come in, an offer for the woman to audition professionally. The crowd erupted, the host stood speechless, and the woman, once invisible, now stood at the center of a future no one had seen coming. The applause seemed endless, echoing through the studio as the woman stood frozen, trying to take in what had just happened. Only minutes earlier, she had been sitting quietly in the audience, unnoticed and unimportant in the eyes of the show. Now, she was standing center stage, her voice not only silencing laughter, but opening doors she never thought would be possible again. The host, usually quick with jokes, stepped aside, almost invisible as the spotlight shifted fully onto her. For once, he wasn't the star of his own show, and even he seemed to realize that this was how it was meant to be. The producer confirmed the call from the music label, and the audience erupted once more. Cameras zoomed in, capturing her overwhelmed smile, the tears she could no longer hold back. She thanked the crowd softly, not with dramatic speeches, but with words that carried honesty. She admitted she never thought her voice would reach beyond her small community, that she had once accepted her dream was gone. Yet somehow, fate had chosen this unlikely stage to give her a second chance. As the show wrapped up, viewers at home flooded social media, turning her into a trending topic overnight. Clips of her songs spread quickly, and people who had never heard her name were suddenly inspired by her story. The host ended the episode differently than usual, without sarcasm or mockery, but with a rare sincerity, acknowledging that sometimes the most powerful talent comes from the most unexpected places. The woman walked off the stage, no longer invisible, but seen and celebrated for who she truly was. Her story left the audience with a reminder that humility and hidden talent can outshine pride, and that every voice, no matter how simple, has the power to change the room.